Hello there. It's Friday, 16th of October. How are you doing? I'm here with Jonah. I've had a pleasant week. The sun is shining. It's cooler, but that's okay. And already this past week, two nice surprises came to me. Firstly, on Tuesday, I was taken out for breakfast by a bunch of parishioners, and I was told that it was Pastor Appreciation Day. I had no clue. It was a big, big surprise, but I enjoyed a very pleasant breakfast, and I got a nice card signed by all the people who come to daily mass, and that was lovely. I felt very much appreciated, really, and I just did say to them during mass, the following day that I wonder when, if there's a Pastor Appreciation Day, when is Flock Appreciation Day, because I'll have to start writing my cards now. Anyways, that was Tuesday. And then today, I was told by our staff here that today is Appreciate Your Boss Day or something like that, which is quite funny to me because I never really see myself as a boss, However, the staff are providing lunch today and cake. So if there's lunch and cake, then, I'm all for it, and I look forward to that celebration with them today. So nice surprises, and I think that we have to take every opportunity at this moment in time, especially to celebrate whenever we can, whether you're celebrating yourself or others, or just celebrating your faith, which is what we're all about here at Church of the Holy Spirit. Anyways, there are three different things I want to mention to you today as I'm talking away, and I wanted to talk to you about two different saints, because they always inspire, two important saints, and then talk about one sinner. The two saints are St. Ignatius of Antioch, St. Teresa of Avila, and the sinner is me. Okay, so first of all, tomorrow is the feast of St. Ignatius of Antioch. And I think he's quite an important saint, really, one of the very early saints. And one of the interesting things to know about him is that he was made a bishop by St. Peter, the first pope. So, I mean, not many bishops can claim that, but he was made bishop by St. Peter. So, we're going way, way back now. These are the early days of our faith and early days of the church. And he was bishop of Antioch, which would be in Syria today. And he wrote a lot of, not a lot, he wrote a few important pastoral letters, which were very intended to encourage people in their faith and not to give up. And he was the first person in the whole wide world to refer to us, followers of Jesus, as Catholic. Never before was Catholic used. So St. Ignatius of Antioch referred to the church as being Catholic, which meant to encompass all believers, followers of Christ. Okay, so that's what he did. He obviously, he was a great man, a great bishop, and he ended up dying for the faith. He was thrown to the wild animals in the circus, during the persecutions. So he gave his life in that way. But in one of his writings, almost like prophetically before he died, he said, he called himself, he said, I am God's wheat. I am God's wheat that will be ground, by the teeth of the wild animals and converted into pure bread for Christ. Interesting, isn't it? Quite interesting and quite beautiful in its own way. A bit kind of alarming too, the notion that you're being like ground into, to death, by wild animals, which actually happened to him, and none of us really want that. But I think spiritually, what is important for me listening to that is the fact that he had that desire, from an early age to be different, to be changed, to be converted, and more importantly, to be converted into Christ's bread, Christ's body. So those Eucharistic kind of like symbols in the way he spoke kind of inspire us now, today. Because I think, at the bottom of our soul, somewhere deep down, and maybe not so deep down, that we all have a desire to change. We have a desire to convert, and we have a desire to come closer to Christ. And we see in St. Ignatius not somebody who had like a small desire, but a burning, ardent desire, to be with Christ and to be part of Christ. So much so, he saw himself as wheat. Imagine that image, wheat, which gets ground and ground and ground and converted into flour, which becomes bread, The conversion is total, not the same as before. The wheat, which becomes the flour, which becomes the bread, is like, it means that when we get converted, our conversion changes us from exactly the opposite to what we were before. But also, too, I think, in the words of St. Ignatius, really, by the ground down by the wild animals, it indicates a price, a price that we pay for the conversion, and that may be in a small way or a big way. We may have to turn our backs on other things in our life, sinful ways, bad ways, or we may have to sort of like be more focused in the way that we pray, give up something, give up watching TV or whatever it is in order to be more focused on that desire. But I put that to you today because, again, saints inspire us and they help us to focus on what our life is all about, And our life is all about Jesus. And when you see somebody like St. Ignatius, who was completely happy to give up all of his life so that he might become bread for Christ, or Christ's bread, I think that's inspiring. And he died for it, And so he is a martyr. And tomorrow, the 17th, is when the church recognizes his saint, his feast day. So that's saint number 1, St. Ignatius of Antioch. And the second saint today that I want to talk to you about is, I've probably spoken to you about her before, and I'll probably talk to you about her again because I have to say she's one of my favorites, So Saint Teresa of Jesus, or more commonly known as Saint Teresa of Avila. It was her feast day yesterday, and we didn't have Mass here yesterday, so I didn't get to talk to the people about her. So I'm talking to you instead, and a wonderful, wonderful person during a difficult time in the world. She was focused, and she only wanted to be one with Jesus Christ. And so she became a Carmelite nun, in Spain, a Carmelite nun. And when she joined the convent, she found that it was all a bit sloppy, all a bit slack. Everything was a bit loosey-goosey. And she decided, well, if I'm going to follow Jesus and give myself to him in this life, then we're going to have to make some changes. And so she was a strong, motivated woman who decided that she was going to reform the Carmelites. And she set about that, against all odds. She managed to reform the Carmelites to what we know them as today, and she founded not just one different monastery in Avila alongside the one she lived, but many others throughout Spain. And so her rule and her reforms and her writings remain with us to this day to help us keep focused on Christ, And I say she did all of this with lots of opposition, because everybody, when everybody's enjoying their life, nobody likes somebody coming along and sort of saying, well, you're not doing it right, But she dared to do that, and she did it for the right reasons. She was also a very physically impaired person. She was sick for a lot of her time, She battled sickness. So in spite of all these obstacles, she managed to achieve that. And the other, probably the more important part of St. Teresa of Avila was that she achieved all of that, I think, through her very, very strong and very, very beautiful prayer life. She focused her life on prayer and praying to Jesus, and she gave time, without limits, to praying to Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, through the Scriptures, and most of all in silence. And she wrote a lot, volumes and volumes of stuff, from her own autobiography to a special work dedicated to prayer called The Interior Castle. Try and read it if you can, or take bits of it, but there's lots of ways that you can access St. Teresa of Avila, not least through her poems. And I think that on our website just yesterday, Maria posted one of her poems, and a very beautiful poem too. And a couple of words always stick with me. I could talk to you about different things to do with Teresa, but the one kind of thing that always sticks with me is that she always sort of says, you know, I die, but I don't die, you know. So dying to myself is nothing because I don't die. Such was the importance of her faith in Jesus Christ, who had died and rose for her, that by uniting herself to Jesus, there's nothing to lose, you know, and everything to gain. And so much so she desired just to be with him for the rest of her life, for all eternity, regardless of what she had to give up for it, you know. I die to myself, I die to this, I die to the sins of my life, but I don't die because, you know, but Jesus is always there. And I think that's important for us right now. Things are changing around us. We're being asked to make different sacrifices about the way we live our lives. COVID has got a threat to us, you know, and we're scared. But amidst all this, she's sort of saying, well, okay, so what matters, you know, is that you're with Jesus. So you die, but you don't die, because Jesus is what gives you the life, which will never end. She's focused, and she helps me focus. So Saint Teresa of Avila, doctor of the church, doctor of prayer. She shows us how to pray. One of my favorites. You will get tired of me talking about her, probably, okay? So I've talked about two saints and talk about one sinner now, which is me, because I'm not a saint. I'd like to be one, but, you know. But sinner in the sense that it's not disconnected to Saint Teresa of Avila. I was lucky enough 5 years ago to take a sabbatical. And 3 months of my sabbatical I spent in Avila, reading the entire works of Saint Teresa. And I loved it and had a great time and had lots of different experiences. One of the tasks I took with me, and it's not really connected with Saint Teresa, is that I was always interested, you know, being a priest and always celebrating Mass in front of the people. I was always interested to know, you know, what it's like to be sat at the back of the church, you know. You know how in churches, in parishes, you always see people who are sat right in the very last pew, you know, and they never come forward. And even if you invite them to come forward, they don't. They always sit in the same seat right at the back, you know. And that's frustrating for some priests because you would really like them to come forward, but they don't. But for me, it was kind of interesting. I just kind of wanted to know, well, why, you know, and what is it like sitting at the back of the church for the celebration of Mass? So when I was in Avila on my 3-month stint there, you know, I purposefully and intentionally went to Mass, you know, every day, and especially on Sundays, and I sat in the back pew, and I was just sat there, and I have to say I enjoyed the experience, because people sort of say, you know, you say to me, well, they can't be participating properly if they're sat at the back of the church. They need to be up close and next to the altar. And I thought that for a long time too, so I kind of wanted to investigate, you know, well, what's going on here? And actually, sitting in the back pew for 3 months was very therapeutic, because it gave me a different perspective. Certainly because I saw the whole body of the church. I saw everybody in front of me, and it made me feel like I was part of something much bigger than myself. You know what I mean? And it was also made me slightly more contemplative in the way I participated in the Mass. It was quieter. It felt quieter, you know. My assumption was that people who sat at the back of the church were just those who wanted to talk or mess around or something, or just think of something else. But no, I found it very meditative. But this is the other point that I bring to you, is that when I was there, I noticed that there were similar people like me who sat at the back of the church in Avila in Spain. And they always sat in exactly the same place. And they were always at the same Mass. And so before I finished my stint in Avila, I dared one Sunday after Mass to approach an old man who was sitting in the pew maybe behind me, and asked him about why he always sat in that place, you know. And I thought he was going to say, you know, well, it's easy to leave, you know. But he said to me, he said, you know, he said, well, I always sat in this place here with my wife, you know, when she was alive, and we always came to Mass together. And by me continuing to sit in this pew here on a Sunday, I can feel her with me, you know. So it's a way of me feeling close to my wife. He told me that, and it kind of blew me away. It kind of blew me away, and it kind of corrected my assumptions that people who sit at the back, you know, are not interested or they're not participating. But very often the motives we don't know. And as priests, you know, we can judge people for their motives without knowing, you know, what's going on. So I felt very honored to be able to speak to that man, and he was very forthcoming. He said, yeah, I always used to sit here with my wife, and so I continue to sit here because I feel close to her. And I guess by feeling close to her, he felt close to Jesus. So there you are. 2 saints, 1 sinner, and it's Friday, and good to be with you. I would show you Jonah, but he's actually asleep right in front of me on the floor. But he is here, and thanks to you all for your support of your parish, and for tuning in to see Fridays with Father. And if you're able to get to Mass on Sunday, we look forward to seeing you. If not, we'll see you here this time next week. Take care. Bye-bye. Cheers.